Chiisakobe is a modern retelling of a novel by the same name, where Shigeji, a junior craftsman, is left to recover and manage his family carpentry shop after his parents tragically pass away. While he's busy building up the business, mourning his family and looking for purpose, his housekeeper takes in 5 orphans and is dead set on giving them shelter and a decent childhood. So our protagonist gathers all the empathy and willpower he can and starts pushing. The carpentry company is always on the brink of bankruptcy, there's always something going on at home with the children, and all that tension is never translated to us, the readers. I can very easily see how another author would interpret the novel in a very melodramatic way, but Mr. Mochizuki over here doesn't do that. He converts huge plot twists and story hooks into a couple simple, imposing panels. When robbed of most suspense, the story is shown for what it truly is. Simple people that try their best to understand each other. A clear message so impressively portrayed in every aspect of this manga.
It's another day. I don't wanna do anything. Oh, I gotta get it together. The world's waiting for me after all. No, it doesn't go away.
Immediately noticeable is how distinct the art style is. Characters have simplified faces and silhouettes, the positions we see them in are very natural and casual, and that comes in contrast with normal manga, where gestures are slightly exaggerated to make things visually easy to understand. But Chiisakobe is illustrated in such a clear way that there's room for subtlety to breathe and to make an impact. Everything from how characters stand, to their small facial expressions, to the way they fiddle when they talk, all real aspects of body language that you would pick up in a normal conversation. The fact that this was captured in this medium, not for a sequence of panels, but for the entirety of the manga, is so impressive and fresh as a visual, and that is the result of many elements building up on each other. And one of the key elements in here are the unique way interactions are portrayed. While characters are talking, we regularly look at their feet, their posture, their arms, random elements in their environment, which is another way the manga shakes up on the surface simple interactions. Probably the most unique aspect in here are, on first read, the useless panels. What you're looking at right now is a full page. Ritsu, our other main character, is portrayed in 3 out of the 4 panels. You don't have the context, but trust me, it makes sense for her to have a little grimace and for her fists to be clenched. But why do we see the back of her neck? Or for example, this page. Why do we see Shigeji's standoffish position from 3 different angles? Well, I think that all of the useless panels have double meanings. The first and the most obvious one is that they give the story time to breathe. It lets us, the readers, sink into the moment, think and observe the interactions in a more natural manner. Now, the second meaning is panel specific. To go back to my example, seeing Ritsu's back signifies weakness. She's being shown to us, the readers, in a vulnerable angle. That's because in this chapter she's shown to be underqualified to take care of the children, so much so that most of the next chapter is solely dedicated to her silently convincing herself she will be of some value to these kids. Or we can take my other example, Shigeji, who is very stubborn, not for stubbornness' sake, but for his very strong personal beliefs that he has a very hard time conveying to anyone, because he's worried they will be burdened by those beliefs. What these 3 separate panels convey are his frustration, confusion and anger with his situation, obviously, but it also portrays that almost childish resolve of his to not burden those around him. This is a paneling technique that's used a lot, sometimes in simpler ways to show us the passage of time or to show us the meaningful silence in a conversation, or to give us a very good idea of the surrounding area, because there's so many establishing shots in the manga. But obviously these panels aren't useless. They and all the other visual aspects are important, because they strive to engage us on an intimate level with the story, and in my opinion they succeed so much so that they manage to create a beautiful snapshot of life, little moments that we as readers are allowed to be in. That's all the manga is. It explores the interpersonal dynamics of characters. However, they don't just sit there and talk about themselves. No, they live their lives. That's why we don't follow the carpentry shop or most of the adoption process apart from that one chapter. And instead, the story relates its theme to random happenings. For example, chapter 28 just starts with one of the kids that has a tendency to cry, asking for permission to cry. And after that, we try to explore what exactly scares her, and then the chapter ends with a joke. Or there are these two chapters where the gang goes to the park. Shigeji narrates on a very surface level what is happening, and we go over a memory between him and Ritsu when they were kids. And then they go home and the chapter ends. That's it. I'm giving these examples to show how non-linear the story can feel, but at the same time that there is a simple narrative that we're introduced to every chapter. So we can just follow that and nothing is confusing or disorienting when it comes to the untraditional pacing. The cover for the third volume has a quote, comparing this manga to the poetic nature of Wes Anderson's films. And while I'm not 100% behind that statement, I will say there are similar elements in the story. Just like Anderson's movies, there's a simple narrative to be followed, the obvious emotional moments to relate to, and below all that, there is a lot of symbolism that is sometimes meaningful and sometimes just random, neat imagery. I'm making this vibes-based comparison because that's what most people will get out of this on their first read. Vibes. In fact, I didn't feel that great about the manga after finishing it. The only highlights for me were how fresh everything felt and Shigeji's cool beard. Most of the thoughts and analysis I actually have I developed when writing the script and thinking more about the different elements that make the manga what it is. So what I'm trying to say is that the whole experience really sneaks up on you. The positive of that is Chiisakobe as a piece of art gets more and more interesting each time you reread the story. The negative of that is most people will read it once, if even that, and then forget about it. They simply wouldn't give it the attention it needs to grow on them. Of course, you could say this about most great manga, that it needs your full attention and it rewards you the effort you put into it. But I find one big issue with that comparison, because most manga have their characters at some point clearly state their thoughts and motivations, which in turn sparks you, the reader, to dig deeper into what the manga is actually trying to tell you. And every other manga you're seeing right now has a very strong hook. A dead world, a badass swordsman out for revenge, hunting dragons. There's always something out of the ordinary that pulls the narrative forward. But here there is just ordinary life. Even most slice of life titles exaggerate and visually concentrate on particular moments to make them more impactful. That doesn't happen here. There is a lot of silence, conversations die down naturally, there is a lot of unresolved feelings and conversations. Just like in real life, only a couple things are overly impactful, and those are the moments you kind of expect to be impactful. But the day-to-day life we look at most of the series doesn't have that much action. So in a desperate attempt, I'm saying to you right now, please find the precious time to read this manga, and while you're doing that, give it the full attention it deserves, and I promise it will reward you with a meaningful experience. A couple last things to have in mind before jumping into it. The kids, don't really get that much attention. Each one of them is special and gets some time to shine. But mostly we focus on Ritsu and Shigechi. So because of that, to enjoy their journey and to really understand them as characters, you have to have previous knowledge of problem kids. For example, saying random mean things, or being overly vulgar, or trying to manipulate adults, being very open and then close up out of nowhere, are all things that problem children do in real life. But if you don't work with kids like that, or you didn't grow up close with a kid like that, or if you weren't a problem child yourself, you will look at all the weird shit the kids do and you will think it's just that, weird shit, when in actuality the reader has to have an outside information and experiences to contextualize why do the kids behave the way they do. So it was definitely a good idea to portray why do the children do some of the things they do, but the manga doesn't do that. Meaning you just might miss out on a very engaging aspect of the manga. So heads up for that, I guess. Man, I had a much higher score for Chiisakobe in mind, but then I remembered this guy exists and the whole vibe got a little fucked. I don't know why is he spying on his adult daughter. I don't get the reference. I don't think it's funny. He doesn't show up too often, but even just his presence anywhere near this title kind of just sours the experience for me. So I'm gonna throw it up as like a strong 8 and call it a day. If you're watching this video right now, that means the next review is already ready, already completed, loaded up in the chamber, and that I have successfully made it out of the weird slump I was in. Nobody really cares about it, so I'm not gonna talk about it. I'm here to stay. Fuck with me. Maybe I'll do a little plug the next review. That's it for now though. See ya.